And I've always said that black people all over the planet will never have any respect until black people in Africa have respect. I would say that most Africans in the diaspora can't make it here.
Why do you say that?
Number one, they don't understand Africa. They're not prepared to understand. They understand where they're from. They have family wherever they came from, and it's hard to leave family. It is the structures and systems in this place do not make it easy for us to come home. This is home. I've got baskets of stories. I've got baskets of stories.
Wow. I think you need to share your experience on this continent with me and my people.
Come on back, after you get a handful of hits on this one, and say, okay, this is part two, no problem.
Yeah, I think we need to talk about it. Okay, all right.
I told you, the day is for you, and it's not about us, it's for them. So that's our mission, isn't it?
Okay, guys, so as I told you in a previous video that there will be a part two where we share more about him and his life on this continent, and especially in West Africa. So if you are here watching me from the diaspora, I have someone who have the experience to share with you, and also to be able to let you know that it's possible moving back onto the continent and have your peace of mind. For how long will you be there? Just come home. Home is home. So thank you once again. It's a pleasure, as I said, meeting you and also getting to know more about you. But earlier on, you were telling me you've been on the continent for
6 out of the last 29 years.
29 years.
My kids grew up here.
Wow.
This is basically, the rest of my adult life. I mean, everything you see here is a working retirement. And everybody who knows me has heard this. The working should not exceed the retirement. I've been failing for years. I used to be in that kitchen from 6 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon getting food out, running the food services, I now hardly ever go in there. I'm getting better, but there's still too many hats I'm wearing. That's why I dropped the phone chip. That's why I'm slowly trying to release as much responsibility so I'm a bit more free, because it's a working retirement.
Wow, interesting. Take us back a little bit. Before you've never been on the continent.
Before 81, I was,
Just
let me do some math.
okay.
I would have been about 22, 23.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was the perception about Africa? What do you know about Africa? Were you having the zeal to come?
To this day, I try to put my finger on the answer to that question. I don't know. I keep thinking. I rack my brain, and I said, what was it that put me in that program? Why did I go? Because I really had to go really out of my way to get in that program. I don't have the answer. I think being in England for a year was helpful because I never really been out of the U.S. And then meeting other Africans in England was very helpful. And to this day, I still have two friends, two different kinds of Africans that I met in Bristol. We're friends till today. One is a Nigerian who has a British mother, and the other is an Indian who was born in Kenya. Yeah, and left during those troublesome years, and his whole family moved to London. But then I met other Africans there, other Caribbean people there. I used to hang out a lot at a reggae club when I was a student up there. So I think all of that probably influenced. And then being at the university, also when I went to university in the U.S., meeting more Africans there, and just being, you're raised with a certain type of education. And I think people are realizing that even today, that the education is limited. And but there's so much information out there.
Yeah.
And over time, some people actually, kind of are led in the direction to see this. Others not interested, or it's hidden. They'll never see it, maybe because it's in a book. But I think it was an evolving process of understanding of what the existence of black people is in the U.S., what it is in the world. And I've always said that black people all over the planet will never have any respect until black people in Africa have respect. And I used to do the Student Summit for about 11 years here in Accra. I've had it all around the campus. I've even had it up here. And it was kind of a giving back, kind of a putting back something, taking some of my experiences coming here as a student and realizing that if you can get students in the diaspora to come here to meet young Africans who have different ideas of each other, to come together, to understand each other, help each other, then that's really, the message is it's ultimately the responsibility of Africans to develop Africa. But those of us in the diaspora have a small role to play, and we should assist. And so that's generally the message I give to students.
You keep talking about the program. Can you walk us through the program? Because I think it's the program that brought you to Continent.
There are two programs we're talking about. One was the law school program. Okay, which I believe there's never been another law school program from the United States since '81. That's mine. It may have changed, but for a long time there wasn't. After the second coup and the instability, and then at the end of the day, it requires relationships. There are relationships with all kinds of other, and I found this out working on the other program, what I call the Pan-African Student Program, which I started with another friend of mine from the U.S. I think we ran that program from around 2002 to add 11 years. Until we finally stopped because it was just too difficult. We couldn't get the right traction, couldn't get funding for it, couldn't get the students for it, and it got to be too much work, and I turned my attention to running the beach house.
Wow, yeah. Interesting. How has it been like being on a continent, the experience?
For me personally,
yes,
and my family, fantastic. I mean, look, let's be straight up. I would say that most Africans in the diaspora can't make it here.
Why do you say that?
Number one, they don't understand Africa. They're not prepared to understand. They understand where they're from. They have family wherever they came from, and it's hard to leave family. Although Africans do it all the time and leave, right? And they actually cut themselves off from their family almost forever. The children can't speak the language. They find it hard to come back. Well, their kids never come back here.
Yeah.
I mean, so, but generally it's hard for people to leave their family. Then it's hard to make it. I mean, it is the structures and systems in this place do not make it easy for us to come home. And Ghana is at the forefront, and it's still difficult. After 7 years here, I was eligible for permanent residency. 13 years of trying.
Wow, 13 years.
Frustration. So, I mean, and that's me, okay? I remember meeting somebody some years ago, and he said, I would never invest in buying any land where I didn't have permanent residency. And I thought about it. I said, that never even occurred to me. It makes sense, but you got to have kind of a deep passion and a real love for being here. And I got that in Nigeria. Nigeria's a rough place, and I got a whole basket full of stories from Nigeria. And while I was in Nigeria, I used to come here every 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
I was here a lot. Those days you could fly Lagos, Accra, Lagos for like $60. I came by road the very first time. I said, I'm not going back that way. I'm not going back that way.
I know.
I've seen more of Nigeria than most Nigerians, more of Ghana than most Ghanaians, and more of Africa than most Africans. So unless you're coming with that kind of spirit and desire and understanding, you're not going to make it. I mean, people come here, it gets a little difficult. They can't get, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, you couldn't get Johnny Walker or something like that. I mean, not Johnny Walker, but Jack Daniels. And, where's Jack Daniels? Go to a bar, you can't get Jack Daniels, and they're not happy. I mean, they're not going to make it. And then, look, most of our people don't have enough money to move. It's expensive. It's expensive.
Yes. Very expensive.
My kids went to GIS. And there are other people who do come. I mean, you don't have to go to GIS, and we have other people who bring their kids here and they put them in local school, and it's traumatizing. Yeah. If they're not starting at a young age, it's traumatic for these kids to come from a certain type of school in existence, and now the parent said, oh, I want to be African, and let me just throw them in a school where they can't even speak the local language. Some do, so look, there are lots. There's a handful of examples where people do, make it, and I give them a lot of credit, but what I'm saying is most people can't make it. I've seen people just have to send their kids back. They themselves have to go back. Then the medical issues.
Wow.
National health insurance, not even covered, no matter how low level of health care that is. So there are a lot of different reasons why people can't make it here and why it's tough. And that's why you really should plan and try to create a network. I had a friend here who came with nothing, and he was very successful. Super successful. And I've had people come with lots of money and contacts and still can't make it. I mean, you have Ghanaians who come back. Come on, let's be honest. Yeah. They're coming back and they try it for a year and they say it's too hard. It's too hard.
So in your position, what would be the best advice you would give to someone who really wants to move to the continent?
Plan, prepare, come up with a good program. And look, if you think you're coming here to find a job, stay home. If you come in here, create the job. Any job you find here probably is not going to pay you at any level that you're familiar with. If you can find a job and get the paperwork that's going to support that job, which is tough. Not to say they don't exist, but I don't think you should come with that mentality. I think you should come with the mentality that you're actually going to create jobs. You're making a contribution. That's how I see it.
Apart from Ghana, you've been to Nigeria. But before I ask that, the next question, what took you to Nigeria and how was the experience in Nigeria?
They're different. Okay, my wife is from New York,
Okay.
to just make sure that's very clear. Okay, she's from Harlem, and then raised in the Bronx.
Okay.
Totally different experience in the U.S. than myself. I grew up in the rural area and in a very, very white community. Okay, so we're coming from two different places, even within the U.S. We met in Egypt on the Nile. Do you know Dr. Ben? Dr. Ben Buchanan?
No.
I'll get you some stuff, don't worry.
Okay, all right.
All right. I was on a educational tour.
Okay.
Dr. Ben is the preeminent at the time. He passed away some years back. Black Egyptologist. Nobody knew more about black people in Egypt than Dr. Ben. So I was at the law. I had graduated from law school. I had gone to this little community college lecture. Is actually a lecture in marketing for Dr. Ben. I met Dr. Ben first. I didn't know who he was. And when I left the lecture, it was over. I was stunned. I've got an undergraduate degree, a master's degree, and a Juris Doctorate. And most of what he said, I never heard in my life. I consider myself educated. And he said, look, don't believe me. Come to Egypt, I will show you myself.
Wow.
And it was on this trip. This was 85, 4 years after I was in Ghana. And I'm on this trip with about 100 African Americans, learning about the black and African historical relationship to ancient Egypt and all the civilization that comes from that. So that's why I met her. She was living in Cincinnati, Ohio at the time, and so that's why I was in California. That's why I moved. I remember I told you I was in Ohio for 6 years.
Yeah.
The middle of the country. So she was shocked I was going to move there. Just before I moved there, she had started this little study group, two of her friends, her and two of her friends, called Sankofa Study Group.
Oh, okay. Is that where the name
yes.
is coming from? Sankofa
Yeah.
Mixtures? I forgot to ask.
Yes, we got, so we started with Sankofa Study Group, and when I moved here, Kobana said, well, we're buying this land. We have to put in a company to hold it. I said, okay, call it Sankofa Investments. And Sankofa Investments became Sankofa Beach House. We had Sankofa Monroe Tours. For a little while, we had SOS, Sounds of Sankofa, where we were trying to do some stuff with sound. I mean, I've dabbled in lots of stuff. I used to have a partner with a shop in a mall, a large mall in Cincinnati, Ohio, called Africa Within, selling African things from West Africa.
Yeah.
Then after we met, we dated for some time, and then we decided to get married, and I actually had the honeymoon before the wedding.
Oh, wow.
The marriage.
First time hearing something.
Yeah. We went to Zimbabwe
Okay.
in '86, at the time, right after independence, hoping we could just move there. And that's when we realized you can't just pick up and leave and just drop yourself somewhere else, just because it's Africa. And, looking back on it, we hooked up with some other African Americans here trying to make it. And of course, things really went downhill after that. And that's a whole different story. But it didn't work out. We realized that wasn't going to work. We decided to pull back, come up with another plan of how we're going to get to Africa. And at the time, she was working with Procter & Gamble, and she, every time they asked her, well, what do you want to do with your career? She said, I want to work in Africa. Of course, they had nothing. In those days, they had nothing, but they were coming. They're a big company. And so she became the first plant manager in sub-Saharan West Africa, in Ibadan, Nigeria. So, and I followed her there.
Okay.
So while she was doing her thing there, I was here setting up because Nigeria was too rough. I told everybody there, I personally, I wouldn't invest a penny in Nigeria. So I brought all my money and all my stuff here. And that's why I was here so often, setting up a network. I was a member of Achimota Golf Course even when I was living in Nigeria.
Oh.
And I remember I still have Kobana Asidu Waje's family, okay, and his village. And so I had a network here before I moved here.
Oh, interesting.
I'm an Asafo Hene, Asafo Che, for his village.
Oh, Asakwache. All right, so you're royal.
So, what I'm saying is, I have a deep relationship before I even move here.
Wow.
I have a foundation, I have friends. And so when we started looking for a house, I got a whole new set of friends. And you have to kind of have that,
Yeah.
you know.
You've been in Africa for so long and have a lot of experience. You've invested, you have business,
And I'm retired.
and you are retired now. Will you advise someone to invest into business in Africa?
It depends on where and in what business.
Could be Ghana.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, no, I think Ghana's a great place to invest. Depends on what business it is, and make sure you come in the right way. Look, come on. We know that people almost everybody I know has moved here, and that would include myself, has been defrauded. Oh, I used to own 28 plots on the Borjasi Road.
Bojasi Road. Wow.
They're gone.
Sorry.
No, what I'm saying is
Yeah,
it happens. And when I tell you people can't make it, if that happens to some people, that's it.
And go.
And if you don't come right, and even with my network, that happened.
Wow. So you are hearing the real story. It's not as it is that you hear. There are a lot of things that you need to and have the passion to move. Despite the passion, everything that you go through, that will keep you to.
It took me 21 years to record the land here.
Wow. 21 years. Oh my God. Woo.
So, I mean, when I tell you it's not for everybody, and most people aren't going to make it, it's true.
Do you think Africa is the future?
Sure.
Why do you say Africa is the future?
Look at how the world is structured and what's going on right now. Okay, and if you really understand, how the places that are at the top right now, how they got there, it's not because they were rich in minerals or even human power. It's just they raped and robbed most of the world to get to where they were. Okay, and where we stand right now, we still have most of the minerals on the planet that the planet needs to survive. Relatively, we have a huge continent that's not overly populated. My mother's Japanese, 100 million people on an island that owns only 10% you can live on. It's very crowded. I mean, they have nothing. Okay, if they can make it with nothing, certainly we can make it with everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Wow. I know you guys are really enjoying the video. A lot of things that were said, I wasn't born by then, So that's why I told you that it's a privilege and to meet him, and also we are learning a lot of things here. So thank you, and I hope you are enjoying. Your final words. What will you have to tell someone about Africa and someone who is dying to move onto the continent?
I'm going to quote Professor James Smalls. People disparage this whole idea of these romantic notions of Africa, and this is not quite exactly what he says, but it's close enough. He says that that's wonderful. Africans in the diaspora should be romancing Africa. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't disparage it. Maybe your eyes are wide, but keep your mind open, and then you kind of learn from it. But I mean, that's the only way you're going to make it. Remember, that's what separates these people who are going to make it and who aren't going to make it. You have to have this sense of romance. That the place is home, and it's the place you want to raise your family. I mean, when I left the U.S., people said, "Oh, what's going to happen to your kids?" I said, "That's why I'm leaving. I don't want them to grow up like that." And I think when I say like that, I think you know what I mean. I mean, it's in the news every day, isn't it?
Yeah, killing.
Right? No, right now. They don't even want you to learn your history. They're saying that the learning of your own history is now banned in school.
Yeah.
Books like Beloved are being banned.
Wow.
It's worse than when we were there. And it was bad then. Wow. Now you can, they have body cameras and video. You can see people being shot. Okay? They were being shot before. It's just that we can see it.
Oh.
So, I fear for my kids. They're still in the U.S., and I think both of them have a plan to come back. Of course, we'll do everything we can to let them come home.
Does Africa really need the diasporans to be able to build Africa?
I think so. I think so. I believe it. Despite all the struggle, the setbacks, and the difficulties, we have a whole lot to offer, a whole lot. And ours is a relationship that just because they were shipped away hundreds of years ago doesn't mean it's broken. We're all Africans. Everywhere you go, you just can't just break it like that. So it's not a question of really need. We're one family, really. I mean, if you have the right understanding and appreciation, we're one family. And you know, again, a lot of people here don't get it. They don't understand why I would leave the U.S. to move here. I'm okay with that, okay? Because I just chalk it up to a lack of understanding, okay? And you know, they stand outside a foreign embassy and all morning and spend and borrow all the money they can to get a visa and then go live somewhere illegally in some wretched little place, doing some wretched little job, hoping and then possibly never being able to come back. But you can't explain this to people until they actually go and try. Some people actually become quite successful. And then it's for me, it's a little sad to see them come back and all their schoolmates, you know, they don't really have that relationship. They don't have friends. I mean, because their life is really somewhere else.
If you're watching this video, I don't think I have enough words to talk to you about coming back home. Home is home. And if you really know your roots, you need to connect with your roots. Any final words? What would you tell someone about Ghana?
Look, I've traveled around a good portion of the world. And for me personally, I haven't found a better place. That's why I'm here.
Wow. You heard it. This is why I do Ghana to the world. And I try to convince people or tell people or give them the reason to choose Ghana in case they want to move to the continent. Thank you for sticking around and watching. On behalf of my people, we say thank you so much for having you and also sharing these brilliant ideas and information with us. We are grateful.
Thank you also for coming.
Thank you. And guys, until then I come your way with another episode. It's all about Ghana to the world. My name is Nia aka Ganibi. Don't forget to subscribe. Please help me share this video. Share so people get to know of this video. To learn what we've just discussed. I love you guys so much. I'll meet you once again. Peace out. Ola Bao.